all famous. Okay. Yeah, okay. Shai Pei?
Shinpei.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Okay. Gina?
Yes.
Okay. Michael?
Yes.
Okay. Greg?
Yes.
Excellent. Frank?
Frank may show up later. He's got
Yeah, on the
work.
phone again. Okay. And Iris?
Yes.
All right. And me? Yes. All right. So we'll start this meeting. I think let's go to public comment. Public comment is 3 minutes, unless I decide to extend it. We shouldn't be discussing anything that comes up in public comment. It's for we listen, but we don't respond. Okay. I'd like to add one more thing, and that is after public comment, members of the public shouldn't be speaking. So it really damages the flow of the meeting if we do that. All right, let's get started. Who's going first? I've got 3 people listed for public comment. I got Michael. You want to go first?
Yes, thank you very much. I believe the policy is still 5 minutes for public comment per
I'll go
person
over
until
if
your vote.
necessary. All right.
I'm sorry.
Well, I'll go over if necessary until we get the this all finally settled. I'll use my judgment on that. Okay.
Okay, I'm just clarifying that as part of my public comment, I believe the official policy currently is 5 minutes. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I've attended 2 regular board meetings this year. And one, I spoke with you all about being a board member myself of a nonprofit. It's a nonprofit that's over 100 years old, based in Massachusetts. I take that role very, very seriously, as I imagine you all do here on the PVCICS board. The discussions, the decisions, the oversight you provide have an impact on the short-term and long-term viability of the organization, as well as, of course, on the students, current and future. So my comments tonight are really about what it means to volunteer your time to be a board member when you have a very intelligent and hardworking executive director and principal. So for me, I think that being on a board means you believe that you have something to offer, to actively offer, that your credentials, your experience, your training, they might get you on the board and perhaps they're useful on paper, but really that your responsibility is to be an active member of the board. And it's quite a serious responsibility. I pulled this off a generic source online. I think it's fairly accurate that a board of trustees is a group of people who are responsible for managing and governing an organization in terms of ensuring the best interests of stakeholders, protecting assets, establishing and upholding governance policies. They usually have or formerly have had careers and are happy to provide their expertise to a charitable organization. So my comments are a series, really, from this point on, a series of questions for you all. As I remember from a prior meeting that several of you commented on, or a couple of you commented on one of the public comments, that it was very valuable to have very specific questions. So that's what I intend to do. First, though, I will say that what I've witnessed is in the meetings and also from reviewing the minutes, minimal and often no discussion, unanimous votes, rarely a mixed vote, and your executive director and principal often taking up really considerable amounts of time during your meeting without interruptions or questions or clarifications, and also thus minimizing your opportunity for discussion. So my questions for you tonight are thus. Have you ever disagreed or fully not understood something but didn't speak up? Do you feel that asking questions or making comments are not part of your role or responsibility, or somehow not supportive of your executive director or principal? Do you believe it's wrong to challenge or question your executive director or principal? If you're brutally honest with yourself, have you ever felt intimidated by the skills or the intelligence or the sheer volume of information shared with you, so much so that you feel like maybe you don't have much to offer, or that maybe you missed something or you might embarrass yourself? Again, being brutally honest, do you somehow think your executive director or principal are too fragile to handle difficult questions or feedback? Have you witnessed your chair ask your executive director how to proceed, how to run the meeting? what to do next? Have you restrained yourself from asking questions in the interests of time? And if so, what does that mean in terms of the time management of the meeting? Have you ever noticed you sit through meetings and mute yourself and only unmute to vote? Have you ever sat through a meeting and voted no when others have voted yes? And then lastly, do you believe public comment is a useful and important part of the process? So my challenge for all of you tonight is to, at the end of the meeting, grade yourself. And given that this is a school that you're providing oversight for, maybe consider participation a significant part of your grade. It seems appropriate. It also seems appropriate that for any presentations that are provided by your principal or executive director, that they're not open book take-home exams, that you maybe offer some pop quizzes. You maybe ask some questions that they're not prepared for or haven't talked about. I think that's your role and that's your responsibility as board members to be quite active and to be quite engaged. So at the end of the night, I would say to ask, did you actually say anything at all? Did you utter a word during tonight's meeting? Were you thinking critically about what was being presented and offered? Did you feel worthy enough to speak up? Do you feel you have something to
Well
contribute?
over 3 minutes at this point, so
Do I fully understand what I was voting for? Do I believe that my affirmative vote lines up in what's in the best interest of the students? And lastly, did I enable the executive director or principal to act in a way that wasn't in line with the rules of governance, or to speak at great length without any interruption from any board members? So I think that's the job. And I think if you can't answer those questions affirmatively, I would give some serious thought to why that was and what that means for the future of your role on the board. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Michael. Erin, would you like to come next? Erin, are you there? I have you down for comment. All right, we'll skip that one for now then. Rachel, are you there?
I am. Hello. Good evening. It's Rachel Fiore again. Are you ready for me to start?
Yes, please go.
Okay. All right. Rachel Fiore from Springfield again. I want to first ask the board if you have read the 2024 parent survey comments and seen the contrast of what was reported by the principal last month and what the parent comments actually contained. Poor understanding of governance, concerns of chronic lack of communication, fear of retaliation, not knowing tangible ways to influence change here, and special education failings were among the most serious mentioned. It even highlighted that many parents found out about the new school building purchase from the local newspaper. In my recent conversations, parents have shared frustration that the music program was cut this year in middle school and high school. Commuters have limited access to after-school activities because there's no late transportation. Families with multiple children have huge busing costs that could be subsidized with our per student funding or capped at an affordable price. I've heard several recent calls for specialized service providers, as well as for more experienced teachers with certification and for better pay. In that half-hour report, the data was presented only as positive, and the negative feedback was fully omitted. It is appalling that leadership shows this inability or unwillingness to self-reflect. If parents' concerns aren't even acknowledged, how will they ever be addressed? The survey results highlight many wonderful things about the school that I agree with, but they also contain valuable negative feedback. That survey showed themes of common concerns and was misrepresented by the principal last month. These regular surveys are part of our accountability measures. And if the full results are not made public, the intent is lost, and so is the overall benefit to our school. I also bring a concern to your attention that in the most recent CPAC meeting, those representing the school, lead admin, during their state mandated parental rights presentation, told parents that the school doesn't have a special ed resource room. Their reason being that only a few kids of that level disability come to the school each year. But in 4 years, that could be like 8 kids, more than enough to get a mixed age resource room up and running. They used the small numbers as an excuse not to build a program for these kids, despite also posting their legal responsibilities on their website. That page explicitly states they are to provide the full spectrum of special education or contact the sending district for support. The school even has recruitment practices the school even has recruitment practice requirements for this population. That means these families are being encouraged to enroll with targeted advertising. And then once enrolled, many are being told, nope, we can't serve you here. I can tell you that process is brutal, and that is simply unacceptable to continue this way. It is devastating to families hoping to make it work. And I can attest that families carry this pain with them over decades. Yes, I've spoken to them. This is real and lasting harm. These are families that need the school to be the support it is supposed to be. This governing body has a fundamental role to ensure leadership meets federal and state civil standards of inclusion. This means kids, regardless of ability, have the opportunity to learn another language at a public charter school. You are not an elite private school. This is funded by our taxes. By law, the school is responsible to serve all children or follow a strict placement process in rare cases. In practice, this administration has skirted past this for many years, despite the occasional bad publicity, quiet mumblings in our cities and towns, and informal and formal complaints. It is long overdue to stop the school's harmful practice of exclusion and become the rich, diverse community we should be. This discrimination sends ripples affecting the education of our entire region. Perhaps our surrounding districts wouldn't speak against our expansion proposals if we weren't actively sucking up resources and then sending back the students in most need of them. These families just want their kids to have the same opportunity to learn a language, go to school with a diverse group of kids, and share a unique community. Some families are here for the vigorous academics, yes, but many are here because this is the only school that has language
5 minutes
immersion
now.
that isn't district-based. Richard, you're not the chair.
I'm just,
Richard is the timekeeper.
Okay. Charles,
So thank you, Rachel.
I have 2 more paragraphs.
Okay, please
Would you mind?
go ahead.
Thank you. My family has no access to any other dual language program, and I was grateful to have found a school where my children stretch their minds in unique ways by learning Mandarin. How will this board ensure that the school is upholding its responsibilities of access and equity? How will you provide oversight so data isn't being withheld from view again? I personally would like to reclaim our reputation in the community as a school that welcomes all learners and leave behind the outdated practices that negatively affect our whole community. We can do better, but not if our leaders refuse to look inward. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Erin, are you there yet?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Sorry about that earlier. Yeah, so my name is Erin McCarthy. I'm a resident of Granby. I have a child in the school. I've attended the past several board meetings. And I just wanted to comment on the recurring themes that keep popping up here, which is lack of communication from the school to parents, a lack of engagement for parents, and a lack of interest in what parents have to say from the board. And I'm here because I believe in the mission of the school. Like Rachel just touched upon, the opportunity for our kids to learn a second language is amazing. The opportunity for our kids to be in a diverse school community is amazing. I could be sending my child to a school 5 minutes down the road with free busing and all the services needed, but instead I'm sending my child to PVCICS for a reason. And that's the same reason I'm showing up at these board meetings now, because I believe in the mission, but I feel like the lack of transparency and communication from both the board and the administration don't live up to that mission and don't live up to that vision. And I have to say, it's disheartening that we are showing up week after week, asking you to hear us and acknowledge us, and instead proposals to cut down our speaking time at meetings is what gets added to the agenda. Requests for records get ignored. So I just want to note that in your application to add 100 students to our school, you paint a picture of vibrant parent engagement and communication, and that's just not the case, because you don't even want to hear from us for 15 minutes in these meetings, but we can't access the board in any other way. So I just want to make it very clear what message you're sending to this community. You are sending a message that says you don't care what parents and families and other stakeholders have to say. You are just going to buy your buildings, expand, use the money that is supposed to be spent on our kids now to fund construction for future kids, and not care what we have to say. So I'm going to continue to show up to these meetings and remind you, as Michael has reminded you and as Rachel has reminded you, that you have a duty to oversee this administration. You have the power to have them hold up their end of the bargain in the charter and actually engage with families. That is your power as the board. So I think that's all I have to say tonight, because to be honest, this is tiring, and it kind of feels like hitting your head against the wall when you're trying to show up every month for your kid's school to help make it a better place and help it be the vision that it supposedly is according to the charter, and then told by the timekeeper that your 3 minutes are up. So I ask the board to consider what messages you're sending to us and whether you actually want to be engaged with the community that you are supposed to be serving. On that note, I would again, as I did last month, encourage the board to reject this proposal to cut our speaking time to 3 minutes, and at the very least, would appreciate a discussion among the board about this measure so that we know what you actually think and why our opinions matter so little to you. And I would like to repeat the action items I have shared in past meetings with the board. I again asked Board Chair Bagley and the other trustees to detail how you plan to keep the school administration accountable for improving communication with parents and increasing overall transparency. 2, will the board commit to scheduling and attending a stakeholder meeting that includes parents, the boards, and administration this fall? 3, will the board provide the school community with individual emails for each board member so stakeholders can reach specific members directly, including committees? 4, will the board commit to emailing the entire school community about all scheduled meetings and their agendas with advance notice? For example, it would have been really helpful to the school community if you had sent an email noting the time change for this meeting, because people might know it's the first Thursday at 6 p.m., but you changed it to 7 without a broad email, and people are busy. So once again, if you want us to come to the party, you have to send an invitation. And lastly, I strongly encourage the board to reject this public comment policy measure that will further stifle parental involvement and continue to send the message that you're not listening. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Erin. Is there any other public comment? I hear none. All right. Thank you for that, Michael, Erin, Rachel. Next thing, administrative items, the board email. Richard, would you remind me?
Yeah, so basically, we last month created an email address for the full board. The question at hand is the board members, are they interested in having individual email addresses that are from the school? And that would then become the official contact email address. And you would manage that. It would also be structured in a way that the email sent to you individually could be forwarded to the the central email address as well, just so there's a central repository. But the question is really, are you folks interested in having individual PVCICS email addresses at this point, or you want to stay the way it is?
I understand.
And I guess that my understanding is these email addresses may have already been sent out. I'm not sure. I think the IT guy may have sent them out. And so really it's up to you individually if you want to do that or not. But if you're going to do that, you should let me know that you want to go in that direction, because I will make some updates to reflect that that's your official board email address. Okay. And so there's nothing to vote here, really. It's just a matter of whether you want to opt into to having your own email address from the school. Any questions?
It does indicate in the agenda that there's a vote on this.
And I put that in, but I don't think it's required unless you want to have I mean, I would say if you want to vote to say everybody's required to do it, yes. If you want to individually decide, I don't think that's required. I think you can just decide and contact me if you want to have a personal school email address.
As I recall, we had a rather lengthy discussion about this at the last meeting, and I thought, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought the consensus of the committee, of the board, was that we would prefer that all emails from the public go to the chair, through the chair.
Yes, but
Not to individual emails.
You do have an email address to the state. And so this would make it so that the state email address would be a PVCICS email address, which would then be could be forwarded to the board email address. And so that would sort of automate the fact that it would go to the central repository. Because because this would mean your personal contact information would be a board email address, which would then go to the central repository. Okay.
It's a preference. If you don't want things going into your into your private email, then there'll be another email location for you to use. It's really up to you individually.
Okay.
But this is in addition to what was being said at the last meeting.
Okay.
Any more comments? I don't think we need a vote. It's because it's an individual choice for each of you. Okay. Fair enough. Right. Okay. Public comment policy. We have that's been transmitted.
And this was sent out at the last board meeting, but it was sent out sort of on short notice, and so we didn't think it was appropriate to make any vote on it or discussion. But at this point, you've had it for a little while, and so if you want to go ahead and have a discussion and vote on it, that's fine.
Let's see.
As a matter of procedure, do we need to have a motion first and then the discussion?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to suggest, is that we have a motion to put this public policy, public comment policy to the board as written. Okay. Do I have a proposer for that? Anybody want to make a motion? No?
Well,
Well, I can make a motion to discuss it.
Make a motion to put it on the to put it to the vote. Right. The next thing is have a second.
Second.
All right.
Mike.
Now to your discussion.
My only question is, as long as I've been on the board, the comment time has been 5 minutes, and I'm not sure why the decision was made to reduce it to 3 minutes. I have concerns about the message that we're sending, maybe just a group of people that have been coming to these meetings, but I don't know the reason why we're reducing the amount of comment time. I think it's a good idea to have comment time, and I thought 5 minutes was a fair amount of time to spend.
Are you making an amendment?
No, I'm just, I'm not
No.
making a
Oh,
motion.
I think
I guess I'm
want to do that,
commenting
that's
on the
fine.
motion to keep it, the new policy would reduce the comment time to 3 minutes, as I understand
So
it.
we're just doing a discussion
Oh,
right now.
you are? I'm sorry, Anne.
We're just doing a discussion right now. So
Mhm.
at some point, I would think that someone could, call a vote or create something different. I don't know exactly how it works. The only thing I would say about the issue is, I think 5 minutes is fine personally, but I think if we're going to go to 5, that we really kind of hold it to 5 so that we're not here, for hours. And I do want to hear people's feedback. I do appreciate their concerns. So I think, to me, 5 minutes is reasonable.
I'd like to add, if we go to 5 minutes, and let's say we have 6 people all wanting to make public comment, that this could become an issue, getting the board business done. I'm not against going to 5 minutes. Maybe it could be left to the discretion of the chair to do that. Leave it at 3 with the discretion that the chair. I think that's already in the policy. Can extend it. I've done that so far.
I'm just going to pipe in real quick I don't have a problem with 5 minutes. I know a lot of towns, when they have the town meetings, it's a 3 minute max. I'm down in Florida right now. I'm on my way back up in a few days, but down here we have an HOA. HOA gives you 1 minute. So 5 minutes is to me, more than enough. I don't have a problem with that. So again, that's my 2 cents.
So, are you making a motion which should go to 5 minutes, or are you saying say at 3?
You asking me if I'm making a motion?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Are you
Well,
making
it seems like right now, listening to,
amendment?
Mike and Ann, yeah, I mean, obviously, you're probably going to want it. You're going to want to make that motion to 5 minutes. However, the discretion of the chair's got to kick in because um, I did student council with high school kids for, my God, 30 years. When somebody starts repeating themselves and going, and then people start repeating public comment, that's when you cut it off. I mean, if someone's going to get on and then say the same exact thing for 5 minutes, it's, basically your rules going to come into play where if you have something new to add, you have the public comment. You don't just keep having someone repeat the same items over and over and over.
Right.
Okay, so it's got to be a motion that has that involved in it.
I'll just chime in that I think the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education uses 3 minutes as their metric. And I think it would be challenging to say that the chair is going to step in and abbreviate someone's public comment based on some judgment which may be disputed. I think it's easier for the chair if the metric is 3 minutes but allows for 5, which is what he's done on every public comment that's occurred tonight. Okay, so I think that you're getting the 5 minutes, but the question is, if you're saying you want this managed at some level, if you put it at 5 minutes, it's not manageable.
Okay. Are there any other comments?
Can I say something? I think
Uh,
3 minutes, 5 minutes, it's really not that big a difference. I really think, like Greg, you were saying, is to not repeat the comments. I think we have heard many similar comments various times, and honestly, it is hard to sit through the board meeting listening to the same comments. I think a lot of things can be addressed by the chair, obviously by Kathy and by Richard, but I think to say that are we not good enough to hold the school accountable, it is quite upsetting us to be on the board and to hear that. Are we really not doing enough? Do we really not hold the school accountable? Is that true? These are the things to think about, and to hear the same comments over and over again. It is quite exhausting. And I understand a lot of questions need to be addressed, but to challenge the board this way is also not that helpful to move on the meeting. to move along what we need to finish, accomplish on the agenda. It's just the meeting becomes very not manageable. And I know, Nick, last meeting you were trying to get the meeting end on time at 7:30, which I really appreciated. You respected our time, and I really think that this public comment policy is not to say that we don't care about parents' voice. I think many of us on the board are also parents as well. It's not to say that we don't care. It's not like that. I think it's to kind of set a tone to know that we are respectful of each other's time and each other's contribution. I think we want to work collaboratively on the board and with everyone, and to keep saying that we're not doing enough is just quite upsetting. So
Thank you.
I just want to make sure that we understand that.
Okay. Do we have any more comment before going to a vote? I got a feeling that that no amendment is necessary. I'm picking that up. Let's go to unless there's any more comment. Let's go to
The only, yeah, Charles, if I
Yeah.
can, jump in, I think people have made a good point that if there are 6 people and we have 5 minutes, it's just going to really create a very long meeting. You know, in thinking about it, you know, having the 3 minutes with the discretion to go longer, I think is fair.
and that's the way.
And I think you've done that tonight, you know, in
Yeah.
terms of letting people speak. So, you know, I could see that.
Okay, I think we're ready to vote. Is that right? So
Well,
we got.
do
Sorry.
we have to make the motion then for, the motion is that public comment will go 3 minutes. However, the discretion of the chair, it can go as long as 5.
I believe that's already in the in the motion.
In the procedure.
In the procedure, yeah.
Right,
I remember it when I read it.
okay. So
All
do I have to motion and then someone second it right now?
It wasn't it second?
Yes,
It was seconded. Okay, let's see. Let's go to the vote. Let's see. Give me a second because I've got we are. Is Cynthia yet present? No, and you are. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Should I pay?
Yes.
Okay, good. Gina,
Yes.
Michael.
no,
Okay. Greg,
Yes.
Frank, are you there? Iris,
He's not going to make it tonight.
Einstein.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm going to say yes. So it's not unanimous, but it passes. All right, thank you. Let's see. Student representative policy. Got a my druthers are that we need to the old policy is extremely long. It's been rediscovered, and I think that we need to form a committee to look into coming up with a student representative policy. Can I get some comments from the from the board on that? You can, yeah, Richard.
I spoke with Mike Locker is the teacher who actually ran the election this most recently. I think he's done it for a couple rounds. And I forwarded him the current policy, and he thought it was it could be shortened. And so I asked him whether he would participate in the committee to review the policy and come up with a recommendation for the next board meeting. And he said, yes. I think you might want to get, I'd be glad to participate. And you might want to have a board member participate. And so I don't know if there's anybody who'd be interested in doing that to help write the new policy.
We should have somebody from the board. Anybody want to volunteer for that?
I volunteer.
Thank you. All right.
Hey, Charles, if I could throw in a little bit here too, and Richard, having been a student council guy, you might want to get some of the student council kids in it too, just because sometimes those kids have they'll cut it down, and make it, sometimes they make it a little bit more strict than you want, but they'll also cut out a lot of the red tape and the stuff they don't feel is important.
So this
I'm
is,
open to that.
yep.
I like to volunteer too, and I do run student council in middle school. So I don't know if middle school students can add on some ideas to this as well.
Okay, who wants to chair this? Yes.
Well, I think the
To
person,
lead the meeting, you mean?
student council experience would be the best
I
person to
think
chair.
that's right.
I'm in Florida though, guys. I'm not up, I mean, I wouldn't be able to get into the building. So that's why I didn't know if you want to have like a Mike Locker chair it and just a board member oversee it.
That sounds like a good
asked
idea.
if he'd participate. I didn't ask whether he'd chair it, but you can try, perhaps you can sort out the details after the group. And so why don't you have a couple board members be in charge, and they'll assemble the group and in the spirit of the discussion here tonight.
Just, I know my days at Westboro High School, it was, back then you had your school councils, which is different than what we have. And it was the student council that ran the election and came up with the criteria. So, and then that all pushed in. That's why I think Mike Locker would be a good guy to do it, and then run it by one of the board members.
I like the idea of having a couple of board members actually there. I think that's a positive role for the board members. I think they need to be involved in that. Let's see. Was there a vote on that? We've had a discussion and we've had two. Do we need to vote to create that committee?
You can vote to create the committee. Well, did I say? I said it was discussion. You're not approving a policy, so you're just organizing a committee. I don't know if you need to vote on that, but so I think if you decided that Shinpei and Mike Rooney are going to be the lead individuals, I think you're all set.
Richard, real quickly, Francesca, do you have a question? I see the little hand up on your
No,
screen.
let me do the invitation to that. Welcome back. Would you like to, you were on the board last year. Would you like to make a comment?
Yeah, so me and Henry were elected like through the student body for that election, and obviously lots of like discussion going on right now. I guess like I'm just curious like for like what the discussion about this is it for the process of approval for us to be the student representatives? Just because like I understand that there's like processes for that. I guess like I think me and Henry are a little like in the dark about like the exact process that's going on.
And
So
the basically there were concerns raised about the process, and we're trying to address that. And so we're aware that you were elected. And I think the expectation is that we're going to try to finalize the process in terms of having you come on the board, in terms of the board component of it at the next meeting. And so we're trying, but we wanted to sort of make sure that we have one, that we address the fact that that there was a process that's out of date that needs to be fixed, and two, later in the meeting, the board attorney will be here, and we just want to tell her discuss how to proceed, because the process that we have been using wasn't the approved process, and so we want to have the attorney sort of bless us going forward. So that's the net of it. And so my expectation is that, and she's going to come here at like 8 o'clock. And so I suspect that'll be a topic before we go into executive session briefly. And then hopefully we'll have a plan for the next meeting.
okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to move back to the board now. So I think we're agreed on
there are people waiting to get in. I don't have a chat to put it in, but there's people waiting to get in.
Richard,
done.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. All right, let's see, move on then. So we've got a committee formed, and did we say we had a chair on that one? did someone volunteer for the chair so they can organize this thing?
We can do that at the first meeting.
Okay, so all right, but someone needs to convene the meeting.
Oh, okay. Well, who's to be involved besides the two of us on the board and Mike Locker?
Okay, go on, Richard, you go ahead.
I don't have an answer for that, and I'd say, why don't we resolve that offline and just, we'll send
Yeah.
out an email to the two of you and let you sort that out.
Okay.
Thank you. All right.
Because what you're gonna come up with is a recommendation, it's not the official board policy, so live out.
Okay, that's great. All right, so let's see, minutes. There's two sets of minutes that need to be voted on. Let's see. I got one set here, September the 5th, is edited draft. Is that one's ready to be voted on? It's yes. All right then. I've read them. I saw nothing that was wrong. If anybody else have any problems with the minutes of the of September the 5th?
I'll
No.
motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, let's go to any discussion? No, let's go to the vote. Anne?
I was absent, so I will abstain.
Okay, fair enough. I pay. I'm sorry, I have a problem pronouncing your name. I do deeply.
Oh, Shinpei.
Shinpei.
Oh.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Gina.
Yes.
Okay, Michael.
Yes.
Greg.
I missed which date this was. I'm sorry, Charles.
That's the 5th. 5th of September.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. Is Frank here?
He's not. He's-
Okay, Iris.
Yes.
Okay, and I say yes too. It passes unanimously. Right, there was another set of minutes, if I can find them. I'm sorry, I'm working with multiple screens. Richard, remind me, I've read the things, but I can't. Oh, is that it? There we are. Here we are. September the 24th, a special meeting. The minutes for those. I make a motion that we adopt these minutes. Do I have is that how you do it? Do I have a motion to adopt the minutes?
Does the chair make the recommendation to motion to adopt?
I don't know.
I don't know.
He's asking for someone to make a motion.
Oh, well, I make the motion to accept the minutes of
Okay,
the meeting.
okay, do I have a second? Anybody?
I second it.
Okay, fair enough. I've read them, I found them no problem, but you may have spotted something. Anybody spot anything? No?
Can you repeat the date, Charles? Sorry.
September the 24th. It was a special meeting.
It was October 24th, wasn't it?
On this thing here, it says
Sorry, September 24th.
No, it was September 24th. There is an October 24th meeting as well.
but I think we'll put that one, we need to rest that one for a short while. All right, well, we've got a motion on the floor, we've got a second. Any discussion? Okay, let's go to the vote. My computer is not happy. I'm sorry, it's I'll do my best. Got it. All right. Okay, Anne.
I was trying to go back. I don't believe I was at that one either, so I will abstain.
Okay. Shinpei?
Yes.
Gina?
This is a special one.
Yes.
Okay, Michael?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Frank's not present. Iris?
Yes.
I was present, so yes for that. All right, then the motion passes. So we've adopted those minutes.
Staying for the next one too.
Hmm?
Wish you wouldn't do these all at once.
We got one more. Okay, we can do them together. Okay, anyway, let's see. There's another set of minutes, but I believe
This is October
we're not
24th.
ready to be voted on. So let's see. Committee task force and task force reports. Trusteeship committee. Anything from them?
Frank's not here, so I don't think there's any update.
Okay, fair enough. Finance committee.
It-
Let's see.
There's been no
Alex, do you have
meeting of the
anything on
finance
that?
committee.
I don't think we've had any meetings or anything. So, all right, that's
Darn it.
and personnel. Oh, did someone make a comment? Okay, and personnel is any updates on personnel?
Hi, everyone. No, the personnel committee does not have an update. We have a meeting on the books almost for Kathy's evaluation and to review her goals for this academic year. And that will be later this month.
Thank you. Thank you. So that's that. Principals update. Let's see.
Everybody, can you hear me? Yes. I'm
Yes.
gonna share a screen. Just bear with me. I'm actually having. Okay. Do you see that? Okay. Good evening, everybody. And it does definitely feel late because it's so dark now at around 4:30. I'm sort of losing my voice, so just somebody signal me if you can't hear me. So as of today, the students have completed 50 whole school days. I'll tell you, the kids have been doing pretty well. I mean, the time change last weekend left some kids looking extremely tired this week. The first quarter ended on Halloween of all days. But that said, we started and SY is for school year, just in case you're wondering. So we started the information sessions for the coming school year, as is tradition, the first Saturday in November. So that's started up, in case you know people who might be interested in submitting a lottery application. We continue these information sessions into the March timeframe when the first lottery is. So it's pretty much like clockwork. And the timing of all this really is geared towards the state budgeting cycle. So again, moving right along, because I know there's a time. I think I heard that the attorney's coming at 8. I will try to end around then. The fall athletic season has been very successful with our teams. Cross country and soccer have done extremely well. For those of you, and I'm going to credit Mr. Rhoda on this, we as a very small school, when I say small, athletics is middle and high school, so grades 6 through 12. We only have about 160 kids in the middle school and about 100. Well, when we started, we had, almost non-existent numbers of kids in high school because we had to grow that program, but it was about 140 high school students. Clearly not everybody participates in sports, but we have a pretty high percentage. Cross country has almost 50 people, but they've done very well. I did want to mention, about a year and a half ago, I showed the board pictures of a new climbing wall that we put in the gym. This is the high wall that has a belay system. We got the state permit. It took, believe it or not, a year to get a state permit from the amusement department to operate that wall, even though it's not a public wall that was required. But it's now operational for high school students. We're doing what I call a pilot program with Mr. Musiel. He's one of our teachers who has a background in climbing, outdoor stuff, and adventures. So we're doing a 4-session pilot. They had 1 session last week with a very, very small group, a handful of students to sort of test out what it means to have a climbing program. Eventually, similar to the cross-country ski team, which I'm mentioning is actually a competitive team this year. Eventually, we are thinking that if there's enough demand and funding, we may have the ability to form a team that does compete with other schools. Right now, just down the street, for those of you that know Route 9, there is the Central Rock climbing gym, and they do have a team, and some of our students have been able to join that team as well. But moving right along, I did want to say there are many student activities internally, and I want to welcome Fran and Henry to the board. It's wonderful having older students in the school. When we started, we really only had elementary school students, which, you know, they're wonderful too, but they don't also have the same programming as, say, a high school where there's a lot of clubs and activities that are intentionally, they have an advisor who is a faculty member for supervision and guidance, but they also, the intention is that they give leadership opportunities to high school students, and they've done very well. I just, because of time and I want to do a student services update, but I did want to sort of promote something that is going on now. The students do put up flyers on the walls. We tell them, please don't put them everywhere due to fire code. So our stairwells tend to have flyers there. And this one is one for, I don't know if you can see it. There is a Thanksgiving drive going on where they're collecting food items. And I'm going to put this in information for parents as well. But the students do have a very strong sense of community service and helping those in need. And I think that's a credit to them, but also one of the key aspects of, you know, having a school that has a large region of services to expose students to other students and also community members who have a different background than they might have. So the other thing that, again, I don't know if you can see this that well. I did just take a picture, but it's a compostable lunch container. I didn't take a picture of the prior one, but many, many years ago, actually, when we started the school, and we didn't use the federal school lunch program. We were too small. We had made arrangements with local restaurants to provide meals, and we required them to use compostable containers. And so we had a range of biocompostable containers. Then, you know, in more recent years, we qualified and said, okay, we're going to do the federal school lunch program. It made a lot of sense because we were large enough to support that. We used certified federal lunch vendors, but they didn't have compostable containers. They had plastic containers. So we always felt I personally felt that was a little bit of a step back, but we are now back. Our current vendor, after 2 years of, you know, waiting and things like that, have moved to these compostable lunch containers that they are sort of like, how do I put it? I'm going to say TV dinners, but I don't know if people know what those are, but they have different compartments for things. The meal is heated in the container. Interestingly, I'm told it takes longer to heat the meal compared to a plastic sealed container, but anybody who's interested in thermodynamics can talk offline. Okay, but moving right along, I did want to talk about student support services and just give a lot of thanks to the teaching team and the support staff who are here. I think some of you have heard me say that for a population of what is 584 K through 12 students this year, we do have about 105, 110 people who actually work here on a daily basis. Some of the specialists are contractors with agencies, but most of the people are actually employees. And again, we are a small school, publicly funded. We don't have a lot of the amenities that cost money that larger districts have. But I did want to just sort of emphasize we are regional by design, having 39 communities. The only other school that I know that has that region of service is the Pioneer Valley Performing Arts School, from which, you know, we actually talked to them prior to starting school. The reason why we wanted such a large region was to have a diverse student body of rural, urban, and suburban sending schools. That way you can have a range of academic, social, emotional, and behavioral proficiencies with those students. What we do know is that all students will need some form of support over the course of their time here. Now, the term student support services, our director of student support services, Ms. Cusack, is an experienced teacher and also a veteran administrator. She has that title, but we also throughout the years have added other administrators and other departments that provide what fall under the auspices of what are certain aspects of this tonight due to time. But I really wanted to, again, thank the teachers and the instructional support people. I go to lots of meetings during the course of the day, and their dedication to the students is quite obvious. And again, being a regional school, being able to provide an education for students who are from so many different backgrounds is in itself a somewhat unique skill. So moving right along, the first one I really wanted to talk to goes by this lovely acronym MTSS, which is a framework that is, you can find a lot of information on the DESE website, but it stands for Multi-Tiered System of Support, MTSS. Now, there's tons of information online, and DESE has beautiful graphics, but I didn't want to just show graphics. I think the key things I'm highlighting are, in our school, it's always been a school-wide, K through whatever grade we had. Right now, it's grade 12 because we're fully populated with all the grades. Every month, the grade level teaching teams do meet. These are internal meetings of teachers and specialists to discuss any students that they may have concerns. And the word concern can span academic, social, emotional, or behavioral concerns. And the team, it's meant to be teacher-driven, determines what type of interventions or supports they may have already used and what might be needed to help the students. And when I say intervention and support, it could be somebody not turning in homework, in which case maybe it's an organizational skill, or it could be somebody really, struggling in, say, math. Problem solving on a monthly basis with the teachers to be able to talk to each other. Now, if you work in a school, different teachers teach at different times. Sometimes there's a common planning time, which we try to build in, but it also can be a challenge for teachers to be able to compare notes if like one student has 4 or 5 different teachers, for example, in middle school. But this gives an opportunity every month, in addition to regular grade level team meetings, to talk specifically about students that the teachers observe may need some extra help. It is multi-tiered, and that what we mean by tiers is, a student may exhibit a certain level of need that can be addressed within the classroom, right? So that's one tier, right? But there are students who may exhibit a higher level of need and need small group support. It could still be in the classroom, but it also might be better to have that in, a smaller setting near the classroom. These are MTS services, are regular education services. And when I say that, you don't have to have, a student does not have to go through what's called a qualifying and eligibility procedure with a diagnosed disability. The program itself is, the services in some sense could look very similar to a student that does have special education, in that they might have some reading support, or I put a bullet here to say this does include what we call Chinese support intervention, or CSI. It might look similar sort of schedule wise, in that a student might have a small group twice a week for a half an hour, okay? But MTSS is general ed, and the teachers meet monthly intervention. Some of the parents did talk about, we're like the only immersion school in their sort of general locale and everything like that. As a result of that, we've had to allot and spend not only time, but build skill to build things that are unique to our school. So Chinese support intervention is modeled after sort of MTSS as a whole, in that the Chinese team will meet monthly and discuss students needing Chinese support. But we built this in because no other schools, certainly in the area, and actually in Massachusetts even, have to do Chinese support the way we do. And that is a factor, look, because there aren't many Chinese immersion schools. There are immersion schools for other languages. French and Spanish do come to mind. And so, those schools do face somewhat similar issues in terms of how you provide support. However, if you are a district immersion school, you can select your students, you can screen them. As a charter school, we don't do that. So our support is actually designed also to take, for example, students who may have entered in a non-normal entry grade. Like, for example, our normal entry grades are kindergarten, 6th grade, and 9th grade, but we are required to enter students in grades 1 through 5 as well. And they go through the same lottery process. So our Chinese support is also designed to factor in novice speakers that may be entering into a higher, like a grade in 1 through 3. So moving right along, I just, some of you like numbers and things like that. Our MTS and Chinese CSI services were given last year, the close of last year, to 161, close to 30% of our overall student population. Now, again, if any of you work in a school, you might say, oh my goodness, that's roughly 1 in 3 students get some form of support. So, I don't want to backtrack too much, but this is also, I think, a very critical piece for students here, that it is not a stigma to have some extra support. In fact, for students, it's pretty common for them to see, other adults coming into their general classroom, or sometimes students going into small group settings, small group meaning a smaller room, or maybe with a few kids and things like that. One other piece with MTSS is, because teachers meet monthly, kids may have MTSS for as short as, 6 months, right? We like to try supports for 6 to 8 weeks, and we like to try multiple supports if they need it. But they don't necessarily have to be an MTSS for, a year or 2 years or whatever. Now, by contrast, we do have some students who receive MTSS for longer periods. My point being, this type of student support service is a pretty dynamic and fluid system that we evaluate every month, and the teachers have to look at the students' progress over that time. Okay, so I hope I keep my voice. Under the auspices of student support services, we also support what are called 504s, and it has that name because of Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. It's a civil rights statute that extends protections to individuals with disabilities in most aspects of their lives. This definition is available online, but I did want it may be different than what you are accustomed to or you've heard of in your local district, or talking from parents at other schools. Student supports really has a wide range of definitions depending on the school. Ours is an umbrella term for different programs, and different departments do deliver those services. So I talked about MTSS. 504 applies to K through 12 students. There are accommodations that are made. There is an identifiable disability, but one of the key things by federal law is it can address disabilities not covered under IDEA. So IDEA is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which governs special ed. So quickly to statistics, at the end of last year, roughly 9.9% of students had 504s. And this too is a number that varies throughout the course of the year. We do deliver numbers to DESE multiple times during the school year, but a student may have one in the beginning of the year, but they may then graduate from one, so to speak, or they may have one for something else later on, or they may not have one, or they may, if they're found eligible, they might move into special ed or MTSS. So it is meant, student services are meant to be flexible enough with structure to determine identification and eligibility. Okay. So another sort of group of students that we provide services to that are considered regular education are English learners. And again, used to call ELs or English learners ELLs, English language learners, but recently being within the last 5 years, they've changed it to ELs. So all new students to the school, whether they're kindergartners, 6th grade, 9th grade, or the students that come in the grade 1 through 5, we call them backfill slots because they're taking a slot because somebody left the school. All new students are given a home language survey upon their registration. The parent fills it out. And if they've said that they speak another language other than English at home, they are given an English proficiency assessment after they've enrolled here to give us some data on their English proficiency in reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So those are the 4 skills in any language proficiency. If their scores indicate they're eligible to receive EL services, they are provided those subject to the structures and guidelines dictating how long the services and the duration. And then similar to some of the other support services, there are criteria that we have to go through regularly to assess whether those students stay and receive services. And that would be the case if their English is not proficient enough, or if they gain enough proficiency that they can graduate from EL services, then they graduate. And again, back to my statement about all students at some point do typically receive some type of services. This looks very similar to, in scheduling, it looks similar to MTSS or 504 if it's on that student's 504 plan, or I'm going to talk about special ed also, in 2 or 3 times a week with a ESL teacher, English as a second language teacher, then they might receive those as push into the classroom, or they may receive those as pull out. And as you can imagine, depending on the level of their English proficiency, the service will look different. At our school, we are what's called a low incidence EL school. There's only about 3.3% of the total student body are deemed English learners, which is interesting if you like statistics, because roughly 20.6% report that their first language is not English. So that information is reported by their parent or caregiver or guardian. And what this means is they may speak another language at home, or their first language or their mother tongue, using IB terminology, is not English. However, when their English was assessed when they first entered here, it was of high enough proficiency that they didn't qualify or didn't need English learner services. Okay, but I did want to bring up the first language, not English, because that number also is representative of the many different backgrounds of the students that attend our school. Okay, so special education, we often refer to it as just SPED or special education, but in terms of where it falls, it does fall under our sort of category of student support services, in that it is a service that is supporting students to try to achieve their highest potential. I did put the DESE, a DESE definition here. There's copious amounts of information about special education on the DESE website and elsewhere online. But it is special education is things like speech language pathologist, occupational therapy or OT, physical therapy. So related services that are designed to meet the unique needs of a student with a disability or specific service need. So I mentioned IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act prior, but that is the federal law that governs special ed. In this case, special ed is considered, and why it's entitled special ed, it's not what I was talking, like the programs I talked about before for student support services, which are regular education, or sometimes people use the term general education, okay? But ever since we've opened, our SPED enrollment has grown year to year. We do deliver statistics and data to the Department of Ed on a regular basis. All schools are required to do that. So this information is on the DESE website. At the end of last year, roughly 15% of students were students that were eligible for special education. And so that number has also grown. One thing we do know is that some parents, for whatever reason, like having their students receive MTSS supports. Like suppose it's reading, they might have some small group reading support, and they don't necessarily feel the need for having their kid in special ed. But we also have some parents who, say that MTSS is not enough, but we try to listen and hear them out. But I was going to also talk a little bit about the annual parent survey. And I didn't put the whole survey just because of time. And I actually think I'm over the 15 minutes. We do an annual survey. The screenshots I've put here are bar charts that are done by the Survey Monkey. The first thing is we ask, mainly this survey is to sort of get a pulse on what parents, how they feel about the process, the special ed process, which is a federal and state guidelines for the process that apply to all schools. So this bar chart shows the range of respondents. In this particular year, there were 20 respondents to the survey. So a lot of them were in the elementary, but that's in some sense because the elementary is the largest part of the school. It has about 250 students. So I think, that is where that is explained. But what was nice is that there were a range of different grades that were in the respondents. We also ask, at what age was your child identified for special education and then placed on an IEP? So again, you can see here, interestingly, our student population, students tend to be more identified in the pre-K 1, so the early childhood age. Some of those students, in terms of disability, might have a developmental delay, or they're, something like that, which is applicable to a younger student. Now, we don't have pre-K, but we did want to ask about it because, our first entry grade is kindergarten. So we do have students who come in with existing IEPs, typically from a public preschool. And then you can see that there's a range in the other grades beyond first grade, okay? So we also ask, were they identified as having an IEP prior to enrolling at PVCICS? And it's sort of split, the answer is no. Most of them are no, but it's a whole bunch, it's very close. A whole bunch entered the school with an IEP. And when a student has one that they had from their sending school, it is in force. It is a legal document. But I like this background information so you have a better understanding of the 20 respondents who responded. We asked some questions related to the process itself, and it has meetings that parents are invited to. And so this question is, did you have the opportunity to participate in the development of the most recent IEP? So an IEP is an individualized education plan. It is describing goals that the student should try to achieve that year. And it also talks about background and the needs of the student, the disability, the qualifying disability. Okay. So, you know, everybody said, yes, they did participate in the development of that IEP. This one is about, at your most recent IEP meeting, did the team discuss the program and the services in a least restrictive environment? So LRE, or least restrictive environment, is a legal term relating to special ed. By law, students should be in a least restrictive environment. If we find students have a need that may be higher, we have to have that discussion as well. And so this question, you can see the respondents said, yes, they did discuss this. There were some that were not sure. So, you know, that's what I think is important for us to know as well. This one does not have a bar chart because I didn't want to show 7, or let's see, you know, yeah, 7 different bar charts. But these are questions that relate to sort of measuring parent understanding, not only of the process, but how they perceive it and how they feel about the process. So it asks things like, you know, do I understand? But I can just read them, or you can read them. You know, I understand what was discussed at the IEP meeting. I feel that I was an equal member of the team and my opinion was respected. The information that I was provided at the meeting was included in planning and writing of the IEP. I feel comfortable asking questions and expressing my concerns at the IEP meeting. The teachers and school staff communicated effectively with me. The school personnel respond to my needs and concerns in a reasonable period of time. I get adequate feedback regarding my child's school day. And so this is a Likert scale going from strongly disagree to strongly agree. There is also a not applicable column. The total is a raw count of respondents. I mentioned that 20 was the total number. So a couple of these, there were, well, a little more than a couple, but you see the 19, I think one person didn't respond. There were a couple not applicable, but when you look at this, you know, the majority of the double-digit respondents are in the agree, strongly agree. So the sense is that they do agree that they had, you know, they understood what was discussed and they felt that they were comfortable and they were part of the meeting process. And this is actually a separate question related to, do you feel the input I provided is reflected in my child's IEP? So that's a yes, no, or not sure question. You know, most of the respondents said yes, that's the green bar. And then we did have, you know, a no and a not sure as well. So this also, you know, sort of delve a little deeper. This question was, I'm included as an equal partner with teachers and other PVCICS professionals. So again, the green bar is a yes. And then we did have another very small, you know, no and not sure. Okay. The end of the survey asks a little bit about their knowledge of the CPAC, but also what education, what topics would you like to see if we brought in speakers to the school? I'm not sure if you can read this, but these are topics that I think are important to a lot of parents. But the ones that struck me was, if you look to the right, that's a percentage of the respondents that, you know, were interested in a particular topic. And we gave them some topic choices, but we also had an other category at the bottom. So, you know, not surprising, like 64% or almost 65% were interested in, you know, the IEP process itself. But what was also interesting, and this may also be a reflection sort of the post-COVID period, mental health, sort of, you know, closer to the bottom, was almost 50% were interested in topics related to mental health. The other area that had a high percentage, I'm not going to read everyone, but with ADHD, almost 65% were interested in learning more about ADHD and executive functioning. And I think that again is very helpful to understand behavioral issues, parent support. These were all sort of in the 40%, you know, were interested. So I think those are things that also help us better understand, what parents are interested in. So, and that was my last slide, and oh my goodness, it's 8:21. But I thank you for the time and listening, and I'll turn it back to the chair.
Thank you very much, Kathy, for that clarification. Executive Director's update now. Okay.
I'll try to make it quicker. The new building is still having sort of maintenance work around the HVAC system. It's progressing. They've been installing structural steel to support the new units that are going in. The new units are supposed to arrive. Excuse me. They're supposed to arrive in, I think they're arriving throughout this month, and I think they're supposed to get installed in December. And there's not a lot else going on with the building right now. We did have, we invited the teachers to come over and look at the building, and so that was sort of an event. And we invited them to also make suggestions about, we had them meet with the architect to talk about different features of the building. And I'm going to try to do some things to invite other community stakeholders to come look at the building as well. But we have started out with the teachers, and there's a focus on could we do a theater, and also there's also a way we could do a gymnasium type stuff. And so there's sort of some very expansive things we could do, but it really depends upon whether we get in part the headcount increase would help finance some of this stuff. And so there's different scopes of how much renovation work we might do in the future, depending upon what occurs with the charter amendment and what occurs with other financing situations. In terms of the charter amendment, we're just marching along. There are some timeframes where we're going to need to have ask people to send letters of support and things like that, really communicate to the community that they can support or oppose the amendment. And so those letters will probably go out. I think in the next week or so, we'll try to do something on that front. And so, but that's just sort of moving along as well. Another issue is that we have a open meeting law complaint about whether the whether we posted the agendas on a timely basis for the meetings, and we have documentation that supports that. But that said, just to be cautious, it's useful to re-vote this to as a backup to the original vote for the charter amendment. And so what I'm asking is that people do a motion to re-support the submission of the charter amendment to ask for the additional headcount, 100 seats headcount. And this will, if there's a determination made that we did not properly announce the meeting, this will be an alternative vote to support it, and will basically make the earlier non-vote moot. And so so I would ask the folks to
I'm
just
going
have,
to ask. I'm going to ask, I know, for a motion that we revote to confirm the charter amendment. Do I hear a motion on that?
Motion, Gina.
Thank you. Second.
I second it.
Okay. Let's
Mike's
see.
muted.
Mike's muted.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Let's
I
see.
would've-
Any discussion? It's the same document. All right then. No discussion. All right, let's go to the vote. Okay. Anne.
Yes.
Okay. Sharpay.
Yes.
Gina.
Yes.
Michael.
Yes.
Greg.
Yes.
Frank.
Not here.
Okay. Oh yeah, you're right. Iris.
Yes.
And me, yes. So it passes unanimously out of abundance of caution. Thank you. All right, let's see. Back to you then, Richard.
Okay, then the I also wanted to update, we are now starting to recruit students for the fall of 2025. And I mislabeled the document I sent out, but we had our first information center the first Saturday in November. And so I've got an initial count of applications. And so at this point, we have 23 kindergarten applications. We have 7 6th grade applications. We have 4 9th grade applications. And we have 14 other applications. We'll be accepting applications into March of next year. And so we've got a healthy start here. We have not sent out an email to the community at this point. And so when we do that, we'll probably get another, that'll give a quick bump. But basically the recruitment expert seems to be strong. And so my expectation is we'll have plenty of headcount to, fill the school in the coming year. Any questions about that? Then the next thing is, in the last meeting, someone suggested that Kathy had gotten a salary from the foundation, and which made no sense to me. And so I went and looked at the tax filings, and it ended up that there had been a mistake in the tax filings that reported Kathy's school salary as having been paid by the foundation. And so we've gone back and I don't know if it's up now, but I know we've done the paperwork to amend the filing to correct that. And so I'll say once again, no one's being paid from the foundation. No one on the board or anything like that is being paid a salary from the foundation. The foundation is a holding company for the mortgages of the buildings of the school and is there to serve the school. And so we've corrected that error in the tax filing, which should remove any concern. Okay. And the next thing is executive director's evaluation. And I apologize, I haven't done the paperwork for that, but I'll get work on that to give you the document that's the basis for your evaluation of me. And that's all I've got to say, unless you guys have additional questions. And I'm gonna, the attorney actually is waiting to be invited to come. And so I'm gonna send her a text right now saying she can come now.
Okay, any new business, though? Does anybody have any new business? No, so we're going to make a motion to adjourn.
Nick, can I just say thank you to Kathy for her report, and I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Yes, please.
I will second the motion. Sorry, Mike, I beat you.
Okay,
And you should say that you're going to go into executive session afterwards, right? And so
Do I need to read that at this point?
I think the deal is that you make the motion to adjourn and say that you're adjourning and you're going to go into executive session and read the text that says what the executive session is about.
Okay, so I read it now?
Yes.
Okay. The PVCIS Board of Trustees will enter into executive session per MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A.1 to discuss complaints or charges brought against a public officer, open meeting law complaint. The board will not return to open session at the conclusion of the executive session. So that's that.
You're going to vote to adjourn this existing meeting and go into executive session.
Right. So we need to adjourn and then we do that. All right then. Anne. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Shall I pay?
Yes.
Okay. Gina,
Yes.
Michael,
yes.
Greg.
Yes.
Frank's not here. Iris.
Yes.
Okay, and I, yes. So we are now going
Going,
to executive session.
and we should ask all the people who are not members of the board to leave at this point.
Yeah. So let's give them a short while to do that. That includes student
Yes.
representatives as well. We still have a couple here. Richard, are you able to remove people so we can go to executive session?
There's a Michael here I don't recognize, and so I'm gonna, who is that? I'm gonna remove him.
Right. Kimberly Roach.
And there's a Kimberly Roche is the attorney.
Okay.
Um,
Keep her.
I think so. And the
I think that's a good idea.
yeah,
We'll do it.
and I think we're all set at this point.
That's it. That's everybody.
Okay, then we